Last week we discussed the different strategies that Yechezkel employs. We're on page 1218. That Yechezkel employs in order to attempt to convey the imminence and the strength of what is about to happen to the Beit HaMikdash, both in terms of his dramatic exploits that happened in the earlier prakim, as well as some of his metaphors that he uses to kind of pique people's interests. And then last week we spoke mostly about, at the end of this class, about the continued repetition of the word kates, the end is coming at the beginning of chapter 7, and the sevenfold time that it shows up, and the way that he's trying to explain to the people who are listening, I know you've heard in the past that the Beit HaMikdash is going to be destroyed, and it hasn't been destroyed, but it's really going to be destroyed. And it's going to be taking place pretty soon. And that is the direction that Yechezkel is going to continue to try to flesh out. He's going to try to continue to convey that imminence to the Jewish people. And in this chapter we have a little bit getting into the headspace of the Jews in Israel, at least from the perspective of Yechezkel, as well as the first time we're going to be introduced to defilement in the Beit HaMikdash in Yechezkel's prophecies. That not only are the Jewish people going to be driven into exile with the trifecta, right, the sword, the famine, and the pestilence, but the Beit HaMikdash itself is going to also be affected. So you have these various pieces come together in the second half of Perek Zayin. So we're going to pick up with Pasuk 12, Pasuk Yud Beis. So, Ba ha'es higia hayom hakona al yismach v'mocher al yitabel ki charon el kol hamuna. So, the normal situation is when someone buys something new, they are excited, and when someone sells something, they may be paid well for it, but there's seller's remorse. There's different, right? They miss the thing that they're selling. So in this place, people who are involved with any type of financial, monetary, land deals in Israel, so it's flipped on its head, because the sellers are aware of the fact that they're really never going to see this again, and the buyers aren't really happy because, right, the chances of them lasting out, right, are unlikely. Now, again, Yechezkel is describing kind of or trying to say that everything's flipped on its head, even though I imagine at this time, right, the Jews still don't believe that Beit HaMikdash is going to be destroyed, right? So I don't know if they actually feel this way, but Yechezkel is trying to paint this kind of backwards picture of what the reality is that he's dealing with. Ki hamocher el mimkar lo yashuv, because the seller to this place will not return. V'od b'chaim chayasam ki hachazon el kol hamona lo yashuv v'ish ba'avono chayaso lo yizchazaku. So, interestingly, right, so he's never going to return to the sold property, and then the Yechezkel uses that same language, right, because chazon, right, the vision, the prophet to the masses, right, lo yashuv, the prophet sent a vision or gave a prophecy to the people, and they were lo yashuv, right, because they did not return, they did not repent, even though, again, Yechezkel never asks for repentance, but he's talking about the Jews in Israel. So they had prophets, right, we read Malachim, right, they had plenty of prophets telling them, you need to come back, and they didn't come back, and therefore they are never going to come back to the land. Right, right, they each person gets bogged down in their sin, and right, lo yizchazaku, they do not strengthen themselves, Rashi says, against the Yetzer Hara. Right, meaning they're not trying anymore to get better. They've gotten to a point where they're just kind of stuck in the rut. So, tak'u batkoa v'achin hakol. So blow the shofars and prepare all. Ve'ein holech lemilchama, but no one's going to really go to war. Ki charoni el kol hamona, because my anger is on all of them. So here, interestingly, again, there's a little bit of a slight debate. So the blowing of the shofar could either be a call to arms, or it could be like when the missiles are shooting into Israel, right? You have those alarms that go off. So that's not really a call to arms; it's more of a call to duck and cover. So the Radak says this is a call to duck and cover, right? That all the people in the fields should know we're being attacked, to come back into the walls of the city. And Rashi feels like it actually is a call to bear arms, but either way, regardless of what the call is, they don't fight, right? There is no fighting, because at the end of the day, right, it's a fait accompli of what's going to happen, right? The Beit HaMikdash is going to be destroyed, these Jews are going to be destroyed. There's not going to be a battle, because of where they are and how far down the rabbit hole they've already gone. So Tetvav, Hacherev Bachutz, Va'adever V'ra'av Mibayit. So these are the trifecta that we've encountered a couple of times in Yechezkel. So the sword will kill those who don't make it back inside the walls, and pestilence and hunger, right, are those who are inside. Asher Basadeh B'cherev Yumat, Asher Ba'ira Av Adever Yochlanu. So again, prophets often will use this repetitive language, right? And it's meant to be emphatic. So just repeating the same ideas multiple times, slightly different words, is meant to drive the point home. Upaltu plitehem v'hayu el harim kionei hagayot. So this is like kind of post the war. The survivors will flee to the mountains like the doves flee to the valley. So this is an interesting situation. So I'm not sure this is true biologically, but some of the Parshanim say that apparently the doves will often flee to the valleys when they are in distress. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the image that Yechezkel is drawing upon, that they're kind of running to the mountains the same way that and this is true, right? We do know that animals in general, when they sense danger, right, they run away from it. So that's kind of, I think, what's going on here, right? Kumamos ish ba'avono. And again, right, they are fleeing, but they're not repenting, right? They're running away, but even so, right, the Yechezkel still describes them as, right, ish ba'avono. They're running with their sins, so they haven't made any progress, but they're running.
What's homot?
Masses. So people, lots of people. The word comes up a couple different times. El kol hamona. That phrase happens a bunch. It happened in Yud Gimel, happened in Yud Daled, and then kulam homot it's same type of word. Fine. Kol hayadayim tirpena, all of the hands will weaken. V'chol berkayim tilach damayim, and all of the knees will go like water. So I actually saw 3 explanations for that second phrase. All I think are somewhat compelling. Any thoughts? I mean, there's like their knees will go like water.
No standing.
Right. So that's what I think how the ArtScroll translates it. Right. That their knees are just not gonna, they're gonna buckle basically, like water. They're not gonna, right, be strong enough to stand. But some of the other parshanim that I saw, so they focused on either sweat or urine, right? That their knees will go with water, meaning that because of their stress levels, right, they're just going to be schwitzing everywhere, and it's going to be like water going on their knees, or that they're going to be so fearful, right, that they're going to kind of soil themselves, and in that way, their knees will go like water. Regardless, I think they're all in the same vein, trying to convey what's happening inside the heads of these Jews, in Israel at this time, this moment. So, v'chagru sakim, v'kisau tam platzot, v'el kol panim busha, v'el kol rashem karcha. So, this is to convey that even those who survive and who are on the run, still in their sins, but there's a lot of mourning elements to this pasuk, right? So first of all, they're wearing sackcloth, right? Again, so they may have survived, they may have escaped, but no one escaped unscathed, right? They're running away with their sins, but also, right, donned in sackcloth because of their loss, and they are terrified. The word platzot, as David basically says, it's charada, so it's this extreme fear. So they're covered in this extreme fear. Ve'al kol panim busha, and so that's a little bit of a good sign, right? A little bit of embarrassment or shame, but it could be that it's just because they lost, not because of any internal repentance. V'chol rosham karcha, and all their heads bald. Again, that's a sign in Tanakh of mourning. Very often, it's an inappropriate sign of mourning, pulling off, right, balding your head. In mourning, you're not supposed to do that, but it's still a sign of, right, extreme grief, right, in those moments. So you have, as they're running for their lives, right, even though they're surviving, they're still, right, in this state of mourning. And this, I think, is a very common experience for people when they are, right, all of a sudden they thought they had security, and, right, they bet their security on their dollars and cents and other things that they had saved that they thought is going to protect them, and all of a sudden in these moments they realize that it's not going to help them at all, and, right, the result is the next pasuk. Kaspam bachutzos yashlichu, their silver they threw into the streets, uzavam nida, and their gold will be like a nida. So two different kind of, again, versions. So I think sometimes, right, the nida is portrayed in certain poetic contexts as being, right, a dirty state, right? So they were disgusted by their gold, by the fact that it wouldn't do for them what they always thought it would do, provide them that security, provide them that protection, so they got rid of it. But there's a whole other group of Parshanim who don't highlight that at all, because nida is more, right, minudeh means to be separated, right? So nida very often just connotes the kind of the distance, and so it wasn't necessarily they felt disgusted by the money, but it was more just a feeling like it's not worth anything, right? And so the distance that was created between them and their gold is really what's being focused on with that word.
Is this money, or are they really talking about the idols? Their idols in silver and gold.
So interesting. So I interpreted it as money, and I think that was what a lot of the Parshanim did. Meaning, the impression here is not one of running repentance. It's more like, right, they're still running with their sin. They're still, right. There's elements of busha. There's certain, like, things you can pick up and say, like, oh, maybe there's, like, hope for them still, but generally speaking, the Navi is not painting a very forgiving picture of what's going to be taking place with these people. And again, he's telling this to the people in exile, right? And there's going to be one. When we finish this chapter, we're going to do one quick summary of a section of Yirmiyahu where he uses metaphor in an ironic way, which I think it's a famous metaphor he uses. But I think it's helpful for trying to get into the mindset of the people who are listening to this and the people that are being described in terms of what Yirmiyahu is trying to do. Anyways, but we'll get there in a second. So you have this, right? This they're throwing away what I think is their money. It could be, meaning it doesn't say money. It does actually. Kaspam generally is not. I feel like silver could be there, right? Their gold and silver idolatries, but I don't know. I still think it's money. My gut tells me it's money. B'yom Eber Hashem, nafsham lo yisabeyu umehem lo yimaleyu ki mechshol avonam haya, right? And their bellies aren't going to be filled, regardless of what they have, because I've put a stumbling block because of their sins. And now from pasuk Chaf to like Chaf Daled, we now have a focus on what happens to the mikdash itself. And again, like in other places, he uses a lot of these different poetic references or words to describe the Beit HaMikdash. And more than that, I don't know if there's any other reason for it other than it being poetic. I haven't come up with anything particularly good, and I haven't seen anything that made sense to me. Utzvi edyo ligaon samahu. So the tzvi edyo is the beauty of his ornament. So it's referring to his Beit HaMikdash. So that it was this beautiful thing, but what did they do? V'tzalmei ta'avotam v'shikutzehem asubo. But they put into that beautiful ornament, that beautiful place, that Beit HaMikdash, they put into it their idols. Al kain nisativ lahem l'nida. Therefore, I have made them, So not just so they to their gold was a nida, and I to them, or they to me, became a nida. In other words, again, you can talk about the disgust, or I think the one that I prefer, is just the distance, and the distance that's created because of that. V'nisativ biyad hazarim lavaz l'rishei haaretz shalal v'chilaluhu. So, and now not only so basically Yechezkel in this section he's very poetic. He's using a lot of different languages to refer to the same groups of people, the same situations, But I gave into the hands of the strangers to plunder, and to the evil ones to plunder, Lavaz shalal, and to desecrate the Beit HaMikdash. V'hasiboti panai mehem, and I turned my face away from them, probably the Jewish people. V'chilalu es tzefuni. So this is another reference to Beit HaMikdash. They desecrated Tzuni, my secret place, Uva pritzim, and these lawless people came v'chilaluha, and they profaned it again. So this is interesting. So there's a little bit of a discussion again in the Parshanim, more the modern Parshanim, about So God turns His face away from us, and then v'chilalu es tzefuni. So who was chilu es tzefuni? So meaning it could be the Jewish people by virtue of their sin, disgraced my tzefuni, and therefore uva pritzim v'chilula. Therefore these detestable people from the outside, these strangers from the outside came and then in fact chilua. Or is it I turned my face away from them, the Jewish people, and that allowed chilu es tzefuni, that these outsiders came and disgraced my secret place, uva pritzim v'chilua. Meaning, is it just two ways of saying that second half of the pasuk, or is it kind of is it actually going back to the first half of the pasuk, the first part of the pasuk, saying God turned away from us? Why? Because we desecrated God, therefore outsiders came. You can read that either way, but again, the message is pretty clear either way. Aseh haratok ki haaretz mal'a mishpat damim va'ir mal'a chamas. And so this brings us back to last week. Last week we talked about how the main focus, was on the idolatry and other pieces of their terrible activity. But I mentioned that the word chamas comes up in the first half of Perek Zayin as well, and the Dr. Ganzel, Dr. Tova Ganzel, so she references, I think I mentioned this last week, but we could just look at it inside, the flood story. If you go to Bereshis, let me just find it for you. It is 5, Perek Hey, Psukim Yud Aleph to Yud Gimel. That is not it. Give me 1 second. Yeah, okay. What's the next parak? Parak 5. Get Aleph to Gimel. Yeah, page 14. V'tishachis ha'aretz livnei Elohim v'timalei ha'aretz chamas. Right, so the people kind of destroyed the earth, and it became filled with this chamas, this corruption. And then if you look in pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayomer Elokim Noach Kates Kol Basar Ba'Lefanai. Right, the end of all living things. Right, so Dr. Genzel notes that the proximity of the word Hamas to the word Kates only appears here in the prelude to the flood story, and here in Yechezkel, in the first half of the chapter, where you have a lot of this Kates and Hamas. So now, the end of this chapter, you have Hamas kind of being defined a little bit more. Does that make sense? So here the Hamas is not just corruption. Could still mean idolatry, even though generally it's referring to financial corruption and other things of that nature. But here it even takes on a capital flavor. So right, in again pasuk Chuf Gimel, right? So make a chain, ki ha'aretz malat mishpat damim, because the world, the land has been filled with judgments of blood. Va'ir malach Hamas. So again, this is referring to murder, right? Meaning, so it's right. There's a lot of blood-filled justice. Meaning, there's a lot of inappropriate killing going on in the streets, and right, that corruption, that Hamas has gone from being just in the financial sphere to going beyond that as well. So you have not just the idolatry, but you have here, right, a more of a talking about the overall crumbling of societal norms and societal standards that lead to this destruction. The Vesi Re'ei Goyim. So again, we refer to them as Pritzim, as Zarim, as Rashei Haaretz. Now we got Re'ei Goyim, V'yarshu es batehem, V'hishbati Ge'on Azim, V'nichalu mikadeshehem. And so now it's not just Chilalu, even though all the Parshanim say when it says Nichalu that they inherit the Mikdashim, right? These outsiders, these terrible people, these evil people, when they inherit it, so to speak, that is by virtue of force and right in the form of Chilalu, that they are disgracing and defaming the Mikdash. So Kipada va uvikshu shalom va'ayin. So now we kind of shift the end of this parak, Chafei to the end, is the and this is very malachim, right? That you're going to have a lot of leaders who are scraping, trying something. They're trying to come away from this, trying to get out of this, and completely unsuccessfully. So, right. So kapada ba, right. This destruction is coming. Uvikshu shalom va'ayin. You're going to ask for peace, but you'll find none. Hova al hova tavo ushmua el shmua tiyah uvikshu chazo minavi v'torah tovad mikohen v'eitzah mizkenim. Right, so you have happening after happening, report after report, and you're going to ask for some prophecy from a navi to help you, or some Torah from a scholar, from a kohen, or some advice from an elder. V'amelech abal v'nasi yilbash shmama, and the king is going to be in mourning, and the princes will be wearing destruction. Videi am haaretz tibahelna, and this is probably referring to that am haaretz group that we talked about a little bit in Sefer Malachim. They were this group of kind of business people or whatnot who were the people who often secured the throne when there was extreme turmoil and the only next rightful king who was very young. The am haaretz often would jump in to try to secure the future of the Malchut Yehuda. So those Am Haaretz will be confused midarkam from their ways. And at this point they will be judged, and they will know that when all of their leadership, which has failed them to this point and has had them run down this path of iniquity for all these years and has brought all these terrible things into us, gotten to this point, they'll know that I am God. Right? And so this is Yechezkel just building on the what he's been talking about, but he's been doing it now more and more dramatically with more and more types of ways of trying to convey this. Okay, so for 5 minutes, we're not going to look it up inside, but we'll do it outside. So Yirmiyahu, if you want to look at it, I believe it's Chaf Dalid, the beginning of Perek Chaf Dalid. So Yirmiyahu has the two fig baskets. It's one of these famous metaphors that he uses. It's either Chaf Dalid Aleph or Chaf Dalid Yud, and he's presenting these two figs. That's Aleph. Okay, so he presents this to the Jewish people that there are these two baskets, and he's in Israel, Yirmiyahu, and he's talking to them. And there's the good fruits, the good figs, and the inedible figs. And the talk is about how the inedible figs are going to be thrown out, and the good figs are going to kind of make it. And you can imagine when he's telling this to the people who are in Israel, they're like, "Oh yeah, right. Clearly, we're the good figs, and the guys who are in exile are the bad figs, right?" And he draws them in because they think, "Oh yeah, go Yirmiyahu." And then at the very end, he kind of pulls the rug out from under them because he says, "No, the good figs are those who are in exile, right? Yehoiachin and his party, short term might be in your eyes the bad figs, but long term, playing the long game, right? They are the future, right? You guys who are here, you guys are in fact the bad figs, right?" And to some extent, just listening to what Yechezkel is saying here was shocking, right? Remember, the Jews did not believe that Jerusalem could ever be taken, and now not only is Jerusalem being taken, but the Beit HaMikdash is being profaned by every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and with every description, right? The evil guy, the outsider, the stranger, the evils of the evil of the nations, right? You have lots of descriptions of all these people, and v'chilaluha, nichalu, right? They're going to inherit it, they're going to defame it, they're going to do terrible things in the Beit HaMikdash, and just imagining, right, the shock factor or the shock value of what he's saying to the people, because for them, right, this was just unimaginable. And he's saying not only, right, is this going to happen, it's going to happen very soon. It's going to happen, right, in a very harsh way. He tries to give them a sense of the sense of loss of the people there that they're going to experience. But it's fascinating because it hasn't happened yet. We're still 5 years out. So this is like a really fascinating, right, trying to get into the heads and the mindsets of the people listening to Yechezkel and the people who Yechezkel is talking about. So I just think that foil of Yirmiyahu is a little bit helpful, trying to get a sense of insight into what's going on a little bit. But we'll leave it here, and we'll pick up with Perek Ches next week.